24/7 managed outdoor shelters,
This meeting is
not
being
tent
recorded.
camps, that provide a place for unhoused Portlanders to sleep, receive basic and necessary hygiene, and access to case management and behavioral health services. With dignity, stable living, and support services, the trauma of life on the streets will be reduced, allowing for healing and stability that will lead to permanent housing. Safe Rest Villages are funded by dollars from the American Rescue Plan Act, which was approved in July, and we are blessed to receive the support and to use these funds to support our unhoused neighbors on a path to recovery that will build their resilience. Safe Rest Villages will fill a critical need to provide Portlanders experiencing houselessness an on-ramp to safe and stable housing. It's time to change the narrative around housing and houselessness in our community. I don't believe in the housing-only approach towards the crisis. We need to build a more affordable housing with an emphasis on permanent supportive housing, and we need to meet our houseless neighbors where they are and provide the shelter and services they deserve to build their resilience. And with that being said, it's my pleasure to announce the locations of the first Safe Rest Villages. They are, I feel like I need a drum roll here, Menlo Park and Ride at 122nd in East Burnside, TriMet property in East Portland. Thank you, TriMet, for your partnership. The 2300 block of Southwest NATO Parkway. It's a combination of Portland Bureau of Transportation and Oregon Department of Transportation property. That's in Southwest Portland. I want to thank Commissioner Hardesty for her support on that. And the Springwater Corridor at Southeast 45th and Southeast Harney. It's a Bureau of Environmental Services property of the city in Southeast Portland. And I want to thank Commissioner in Charge, Commissioner Mapps, for his support on that. The city's Safe Rest Villages team are working day and night to identify additional locations. Our next steps will be community engagement at the confirmed sites, announcing additional locations, selecting service providers with an emphasis on behavioral and mental health, and beginning construction as soon as possible. I want to take this opportunity to thank our partners, TriMet, the Joint Office for Homeless Services, service providers, community partners, faith-based organizations, and of course, my colleagues on the Portland City Council who unanimously supported the villages, and specifically to Commissioner Hardesty and Mapps, who supported the use of PBOT and BES properties to site these villages. We are all in this together, and I look forward to expanding our coalition as we work to address the humanitarian crisis on our streets. And now it's my pleasure to introduce TriMet's General Manager, Sam DeSue Jr. Thank you so much for being here, Sam. Take it away.
Thank you, Commissioner Ryan, and good afternoon to you all. TriMet is very proud to stand with our partners as they work to address the regional houseless crisis. Our transit services is the thread that connects our cities, counties, and neighborhoods. Our buses and our trains take people to jobs, housing, medical and social services, and education. We bring families and friends together. We literally are the vehicle to economic opportunity and prosperity. TriMet's responsibility is set by the state legislature, is providing public transit services in the 3 counties we serve. And the entire TriMet team works day in and day out to provide transit that is safe, reliable, and welcoming for all. Yet, we go just beyond moving people. TriMet helps make our community livable. When Commissioner Ryan approached TriMet, we recognized the important opportunity we have here. Let the city transform part of an underused park and ride into a safe haven, a port in the storm for people who need some help, some compassion, and the resources to get back on their feet. By allowing the city to use part of the Menlo Park and Ride for the next 2 to 3 years, people living in tents on neighborhood sidewalks and parks will have a place to go. with the Central City Concerns Blackburn Center next door, they'll have access to healthcare along with recovery, housing, and employment services, the help they need to get off the streets. TriMet supports our community, and we are more than willing to do our part to help find solutions to the region's houseless crisis. Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Sam. Marco.
Thank you, Sam. And I'm sorry, I'm having a tiny bit of a technical issue right now. But what we'd like to move on to in this segment is to do a little bit of a screen share that I'm going to present if I can get the Zoom gods to work with me right now. So just give me 1 second. And have Johnny from the Safe Rest Villages team present a little bit about what more of the site specifics are. So I'm so sorry, just bear with me for 1 moment, and then we'll move on to questions. So. Okay. Really sorry, just give me 1 second here. Okay. So can everyone see that in terms of the screen share over here? Maybe a yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Johnny, you ready? And sorry, this is just going to be a little bit of a tab here. So I'm just going to scroll down for you.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Johnny. I use he, him pronouns, and I'm a program coordinator here with the city of Portland. Very excited to run through some of these new sites and discuss just some of the details and provide an overview of the various locations we're proposing here. If you would scroll down for me, Margot.
Oh, okay. And 1 second. Sorry. And we're back there. We're just going to scroll.
Great, perfect, thank you. So this here is a map. It's a Google map we created, which shows in green, highlighted in green, are all of the current outdoor shelters that we have here in the city of Portland, and these would be these outdoor shelters are all self-governed and managed under a different program. And we wanted to showcase those in comparison with the new Safe Rest Villages that we're seeking to create. So highlighted in yellow, pinned in yellow, are the new Safe Rest Village locations that we're proposing to develop here in the very short term. Next slide. On this, so the picture on the left shows the outdoor shelter distribution with our new proposed locations. As compared with the picture on the right, which shows all of the 1 point of contact reports received last week through the 1 point of contact campsite reporting system. Next slide, Marco. And then again, this one also shows the shelter distribution, but the map on the right shows all 1 point of contact reports received in the last 12 weeks. Through the 1 point of contact campsite reporting system. Clearly, this is an issue that touches every part of our community, and something that has been incredibly important for this project team is ensuring that the sites we are developing are situated geographically in a way that will better serve community members experiencing homelessness in every section of the city. It's our goal to be able to serve everyone throughout the city. And we want to be sure that these are situated in a way that will better do that. Next slide, please, Margot. So the first one here, which was announced, is Menlo Park. We are incredibly excited to announce this site. Thanks so much to TriMet and their partnership with us. This will be a crucial new shelter for us, given its unique location in the city. Again, this will be for a Safe Rest Village. It's owned by TriMet. It is uniquely positioned between a few different service providers and right next to a Max line and public transit options, which is incredibly convenient. Please note that the anticipated area we will use will not take up the entire lot. This lot will still be used for the public as a park and ride, and so that community members can access the Max or public transit as they have been previously. Again, our proposed area that we're seeking to use is highlighted in yellow. And it's approximately 50,000 square feet of the lot as we're seeking to use there. Next slide, please, Margot. And then this is 8330 Southeast 45th Avenue, which again, as mentioned by the commissioner, is right down the street from the Springwater Trail. This is owned by the Bureau of Environmental Services, and it is directly adjacent to Errol Heights and a Fran's Bakery outlet. And there's also a market across the street, in addition to a bus line for public transit. And again, with the Springwater Trail right there, this is another location that's also very uniquely positioned within the city, and we're very excited about it. The last slide, please, Margot. And finally, NATO West. This site does have split ownership. Approximately 60% is owned by our Portland Bureau of Transportation, with the remaining being owned by the Oregon Department of Transportation. Total square footage is over 46,000 square feet. We are anticipating use of approximately 30,000 square feet of the property. But again, this is another area that we're also very incredibly excited about. It is located in Southwest and downtown, near public transit, and also very close to close proximity to other social services. So again, very excited to announce all three of these locations, and thanks so much to all of our partners in this effort. Now I will pass it back to Margot for some Q&A.
And thank you for that, Johnny. So yes, we are going to move things into a Q&A. I just want to acknowledge first and foremost, I apologize for the problems that we're having with the ability for independent news outlets to record on this. I am recording it, and I will be able to share with you a recording of this entire event. And I'd like to move on to Q&A. You can't see my screen anymore, is that correct? This is
We actually can.
We still can? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
You can still see it. Yeah.
So just give me 1 second. Yeah, I'm gonna try to stop doing that. But in the interim, while I'm figuring out a couple of my issues with Zoom, can we move on to a question or two? It looks like we have a couple of hands raised. And I'm going to go ahead and go with Elise. Elise, would you like to jump on? If you just give me 1 second, I can figure this out a little bit better.
Yeah, can you hear me? I just unmuted myself.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Wonderful. Okay, so I just have three simple questions, probably for Commissioner Dan Ryan. I know that you said that these three sites will be up and running as soon as possible, but I was just curious, can you be more specific? How soon will they be constructed and up and running? And then how many people at each site? And are there any requirements to live at these locations?
Thank you, Elise. First of all, who do you work with? I just didn't hear the beginning.
I am with Point 6 News.
All right, nice to see you, Elise. And you broke in and out a bit. It could be on my end. But what I heard was questions about the when. Was it timeline questions?
Yes, so timeline of when these will be up and running.
Sure.
And then how many people at each site? Are there any requirements to be accepted to live at these sites?
Yeah, great questions. You're going to cover a lot of ground here. So first of all, you should know this about me. I like to set goals. I like to set ambitious goals, and I like to be held accountable to do all we can to achieve them. So we are going to do all our, like we said from the beginning, we want to have these up and running by the beginning of the year. And if we don't meet that, we'll just keep getting up and pursuing it. That's what you do. And that's as a sitting as a county, we have to have that type of accountability and also that type of urgency. So it's so great that we have partners such as Sam that leaned in and realized that we are facing this crisis and we all need to work together across jurisdiction. The villagers will be accepted by referrals only from first responders, from social service providers, park rangers, and others who are on the ground who already have actively engaged with those living outside to provide those resources. So there is a system. Were those the basic? Did I cover your questions? There was one other part, right?
And then how many will be at each site?
Right. Well, it varies. I'd say they average about 60 per site. The one on the Springwater corridors smaller, and then the one that TriMet's offered out on 120th is larger.
Thanks, Elise. And I'm just gonna thank you, Commissioner, for clarifying a little bit. If everyone, so the way that this is going to work, just to be very clear, is people are raising their hands. I'm going to call on them. If you can make clear your publication that you're associated with and who you're directing your question at, that would be terrific. So next, we're going to move on to Alex Zielinski from the Portland Mercury. So just did your job for you a little bit, Alex.
Yeah, like Margot said, this is Alex Zielinski with the Portland Mercury. My question's for, I believe, Commissioner Ryan, but if anyone else can answer it, that's helpful too. I'm curious kind of what kind of structures you're hoping to cite on these properties. You know, the idea of a safe rest village, it's been kind of talked about as an unsanctioned or a sanctioned campsite. And what comes to mind sometimes are platforms with tents on them versus pods versus tiny homes. I know there's still work to be done to kind of iron out who will be developing them, but what do you see, what kind of structures do you see people sheltering in these sites?
Yeah, thank you, Alex. It's good to hear your voice. I was going to say good to see you, but all I see is your name. It's a great question. First of all, these are sleeping pods, and I want to actually turn this over to Charity Montez. Charity is the leader of the Safe Rest Village team at the city. And Charity, could you give a little more depth and detail to the answer since you're close to it? And you're just going to edit me anyway. Yeah.
Thanks, Commissioner. Hi, all. I'm Charity Montez. I use she and they pronouns. And like Commissioner said, I'm the Houselessness Strategies Manager for the Safe Rest Villages project. We are looking at sleeping pods for most of the Safe Rest Villages. I would say an exception is if we, as we are looking to create a safe park program, those would be RVs and not sleeping pods. So sleeping pods can also be called tiny houses. Really, they're small. They have locking doors, windows. They have electricity in each unit and heating and basics.
Are these similar? Sorry, just to interrupt. Are these similar to what we see kind of on Water Avenue with C3PO camps, like those pallet pods?
That's correct. They would be similar. Those are a type of sleeping pod. We may use pallet shelters. We may use another brand of pod.
Thank you.
Charity, how about we explain some of the common areas, such as hygiene and where people have community and they can meet with in a private space?
Sure. So in addition to the sleeping pods, we will be providing, we've been working with some retrofitted Connex boxes, shipping containers. So we are creating bathrooms that have, toilet and a shower, as well as laundry room, and then a kitchenette with refrigerators and microwaves and some common spaces. So there'll be individual sleeping pods, as well as access to those, bathrooms, hygiene, kitchenettes, and then outdoor community spaces in between.
Thank you, Charity. So I'm going to move on to Zane. Zane from the Tribune. Again, just doing your guys' job for you. Sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Again, it's Zane Sparling with the Portland Tribune. And again, thank you for your time. Commissioner Ryan, I'm curious, one of the issues at C-3PO was that while the original Multnomah County Joint Office villages were built fairly quickly, they did lack a lot of that, maybe TLC or, amenities like privacy screens, air conditioning. They had issues with rats and things like that. So what are you doing to really, balance the need to act quickly with the need to provide, a reasonable standard of living?
Zane, may I interject for a moment? Are you asking more specifically about the history of C-3PO and those particular structures, or about what the structures we are going to build are? Because we have a couple of other experts on the call that might be able to speak a little bit better to the specifics of C-3PO.
I'm just concerned. I guess the question would be, how are you working with nonprofit partners? I mean, do you have people lined up to provide some of those additional amenities?
Yes. Thank you, Zane. I will start by saying that we at the Joint Office, we've learned a lot from the C-3PO sites, and that we do have people on the call, such as Mark Jolin from the Joint Office, that can drill in a bit more. But the point is we've learned, and that's one reason we wanted to make sure these were safe and secure, that we had 24/7 provider oversight, and that we also had the showers and the plumbing all set up before the residents move in. So we wanted to make sure we have a really welcoming and safe place for the people that will be housed in these villages. Mark Jolin from the Joint Office, there you are. So Mark has been overseeing the houselessness system in our market for some time, and was at front and center when we were at the beginning of COVID to get the C-3PO sites moved. Mark, could you add some more details to that, please? And good to see you.
Nice to see you, Commissioner. I'm happy to. Mark Jolin with the Joint Office of Homeless Services. Zane, thanks for the question. I think it's imperative that we're building out an infrastructure of support on these sites, both the physical infrastructure and the wraparound on-site supports, to ensure that people are safe in the spaces, are getting the support they need to stabilize, and that we're also offering the services that it's going to take to help folks transition out and back into housing. So the C-3PO sites did go up very quickly, but then we worked with the city to transition from the tents and pallets to the pallet structures, and we've been sort of progressively improving the amenities in those spaces. As we go to launch these safe rest villages, we're going to start with many of those same sort of commitments already in place. And if you look at St. John's Village or the Kenton Women's Village, other sites that we've invested in and kind of proactively developed, you'll see there that we're very committed to providing a standard of care to people staying there that is necessary to maintain dignity and that sense of safety and support as folks work to transition into longer term housing. So I think the programming and the infrastructure will both support ensuring that folks are safe in those spaces.
Thank you for that context. I really appreciate that. As a brief follow-up, I did notice that the TriMet director mentioned that, maybe a 2 or 3 year timeline. I was just curious, Commissioner Ryan, do you foresee these as, temporary 2 or 3 year installations, or do you think they're going to be more permanent or more long lasting?
3 years is what we're committing to right now, and we'll know a lot more in year 1 and even more in year 2, and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Zane. I'm going to move on to Maggie.
That was me following you for 3 years. Yeah.
I'm going to move on to Maggie Vespa from KGW.
Hi, yeah, Margot, thank you again. Maggie Vespa with KGW, and thank you all for your time. Could I ask a brief follow-up first to Elise's question about the timeline? I'm wondering, because Commissioner, your staff told us that basically you guys had pods ready to go as soon as properties were nailed down, and now we have some nailed down. So could any of these 3 open before, say, even the other 3 are even announced, or before the rest open? Like, when's the soonest that even just one of these sites could open?
Maggie, that's a great question. And before I mess it up, I'm going to make sure that Charity takes that question. Charity Montez, you're back.
There we go. Hi again. Thanks, Maggie. So to speak a little bit to what Mark Jolin and Commissioner Ryan were just speaking about as far as the amenities. So we do have some pods ready to go, but we need to install the sewer and the connection to water and get those basic amenities in first. We want to make sure that those are set up before folks start moving in. We are actively working on getting all that ready to go, but so it is not likely. We will be announcing the rest of the sites soon, so it's not likely you'll see people moving into these 3 sites before we make that announcement. But we have to get those, sewer, water, and all of the amenities in place first.
Thank you. That's a great example of what we've learned from other work over the last few years. It's really important to have the amenities all squared away before we have residents move in.
I appreciate it. And then just a quick second question. We went to these 3 sites today and I talked to people at each of the sites sort of surrounding these properties, and none of them knew anything about this. One manager at a business that was bordering the site, or one of the sites I'll say, said this could close us. And she was furious, and she wanted to know how much say they'll have and how soon they could expect this to happen. So to people who are seeing this headline pop up and reading about these locations, and it is close to their homes or their business, and they're nervous or they're upset, what would you say to them?
Yeah, thank you, Maggie. We're moving fast, and we had to start with making the announcement to all of you, which gets it out there. We started making phone calls. The good news is we have a community engagement team that Charity oversees, and they're all over this. But we reached out to a lot of people today. Those calls will continue to go out, but more importantly, the process begins where we really bring them into the village concept, and that they will have a chance to be a part of the building. They will see the sites before anyone moves in. We hope many will become neighbors. And Meg, I think it's really important to know what people in those neighborhoods are experiencing currently, which are people that are on our streets in unsanctioned camping. It's quite a humanitarian crisis. And it's anytime you do change, you would hope that you provide something better than what they're currently experiencing. We are really clear that having people move out of the current locations near these into the villages is a really good start. And that we know that the goal of having 24/7 managed providers on site, and then also making sure our impact reduction team really focuses on the blocks surrounding the villages would be a very high important issue with with the team at the city. So I understand that this must be surprising for people to hear about, and we will be engaging and listening and including as we build these villages in each neighborhood.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I just want to note that General Manager Dessou needs to leave at this point, and his communications director has generously offered to have anyone who has interested questions for TriMet in particular to email pio@trimet.org. That's listed in the chat, and we're going to keep moving along. So Rebecca Ellis.
Hi, Commissioner. It's Rebecca with OPB. I have 2 questions. One may have been answered, but I wasn't totally clear. I know there'd been talk of having one of these as a safe vehicle shelter. Is that still possible, or is that certain? Where exactly does that part stand?
No, that's a fair question, Rebecca. We've I'll just say we had about anywhere from 10 to 12 balls in the air at any given time over the last couple months. And yes, a safe park village is what we'd call it, is definitely in our vision and in our plan. One that you've all talked about quite a bit is our conversations we've been having since February with Metro about the Expo Center. And there were a lot of conversations, that's for sure. They have 11 acres of parking, and none of that was available to us. We were offered an area around 2 acres. It's a kind of loose gravel and kind of unkept, almost looks like anyway, it's in shape. It's not shovel ready. So it'd take about 1.5 million for us to utilize that site. And at this moment, we couldn't justify spending 4 to 5 times the amount on getting that site ready compared to others. we are still at the table with a lot of other partners. And again, we hope to announce more sites soon. And I do hope, and I hope you do too, and everyone in Portland, that one of them will be a safe park village.
Got it. So that, am I understanding right that the Expo Center is no longer in the cards?
It's not today. We couldn't pencil it in, if you will, or we would have had that announcement today. But you know, we will continue to keep the door open. I mean, our office is open to any jurisdiction, any partner that can provide us some land for at least 3 years, so that we can really get at the bottom of this humanitarian crisis.
Okay. Just the one quick follow up.
Rebecca, you did say you only had 2.
Wasn't that? Oh, it was. All right. Okay.
I will want to add to Maggie's question that once we identify the shelter operators, they will be in charge of helping with the community meetings at each site as well.
Okay, so we're going to pivot to Kelly at K2 for right now.
Thank you for taking the questions today and making the time. This is Kelly from K2. Our question surrounds specifically a business owner that we have interviewed. He has multiple businesses in the Portland area, but recently, after 20 years of business, he shut down and moved across the border to Southwest Washington, taking 20 jobs with him. He says that he's experienced dozens and dozens of break-ins, trespassing, and other crimes related to the homeless people that are camped out around his property. But he says most specifically that he feels let down by city leaders. What would you say to him?
I've heard a lot of those stories, and they're one reason why I wanted to run for office. Like many of us in our city, we're concerned, and we're worried about where we are and where we need to go. So I said that I would focus on action, and I do believe that we're starting to really show that this action is a step in the right direction. And so all I can do with my position is to make sure that we bring along others in the city to start building these villages, so that we can start to see some solutions, and we can start to see our houseless community receive the support they need, so that they can build their resilience and be a part of our community in terms of in housing and with jobs. And so, you know, I just think that it's really important that we stay focused on action. And I've always set high bars, and that is why we're building these villages, and why we have the full support of the city council.
And then one other question for you, Commissioner Ryan, if you don't mind, specifically about these spaces that you guys have been looking at for these villages. What in your mind was the most important things to have either nearby or part of them? Specifically, I think transit was mentioned, water, things like that. If you'll kind of elaborate and specifically what you were looking for in these properties, that would be great.
Well, let me start with a couple and then have Charity weigh in. Definitely, we wanted to make sure they were geographically spread out in the city. So at least with the first ones that we've announced, as you can see, they're in different quadrants of the city. We wanted to make sure that they were in areas where neighbors are experiencing a high degree of unsanctioned camping. And we wanted to make sure that they were also different than some in the past, in that we will make sure that they're managed, that they have services, so that we can start to see that on-ramp and that pathway to a houseless person being housed permanently with great success. And we will be measuring the value and the success of this as we go along. Charity, would you like to add? There was a lot more criteria than that. Charity, what's some other criteria that you'd like to add?
Thank you, Commissioner. We looked at a lot of things like the zoning, where it is in our area, the size of the lot, if the lot has access to sewer or how far away that is, if it's paved or gravel, or what accessibility issues, and especially proximity to transit, and then amenities that we all need, grocery stores, convenience stores, but transit being one of the biggest considerations.
And for me, it was finding willing partners, people that, like Sam, were willing to allow us to have a 3-year lease, if you will, at a really good price, so that we could actually respond to this emergency crisis. And that's why we hope to announce more soon.
Yeah, and thank you, Kelly. I'm sorry, we're running a little bit low on time right now, so I'm going to move right along. I'm gonna move to Cecilia Brown.
Thank you. I'm Cecilia Brown from the Center for Investigative Reporting and PRX. Thank you for answering questions today and taking some time to do this. I just have one question. I was looking for an official response on this. This is for Commissioner Ryan. It's more about the decision to build these safe rest villages. Was the decision to build these villages in any way a response to the Martin v. Boise case and that decision?
Commissioner, you're muted.
I did that. That was one factor, but it was definitely a factor. It's something that's impacting every municipality around the country, especially on the West Coast. But it was really that, just open your eyes. I mean, there's a humanitarian crisis on our streets, and we can't wait for affordable housing to be ready for every houseless person. And so we have to get this started so that we have a new approach and a better on-ramp so that we can have success for moving people into a life of resilience. And so it was a response to what we're experiencing in this humanitarian crisis. And of course, factors such as that court case were necessary because they basically make it really clear you must provide services for those that are houseless before you can just move them out of the way. And so we're doing the humane thing, the right thing for the city of Portland at this time, and most importantly for our houseless residents.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Cecilia, any follow-ups there?
Nope, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we are going to go to Sophie Peel at this point.
Hey there, this is Sophie Peel with Willamette Week. Thank you guys for doing this today. I have two questions. The second one should probably be a pretty quick answer. So first one, regarding the referral system for getting people into these shelters, do you fear that the people who struggle the most with mental or behavioral health issues kind of might slip through the cracks by using a referral system? Those who may have less secure or reliable connections with social services or providers.
Yes. Did I unmute? Yeah. Well, first of all, it was really important for me that we provided services for mental health and behavioral health. And that was paramount for me. And some of that's, again, my lived experience with what I couldn't find for my brother when he was on the streets. I would like, Mark Dolan can add more context to this. But Mark, would you like to add more context? Is Mark still here? Yeah.
Yep. Sorry, just taking a moment to unmute. Yeah. Well, and Sophie, I'll start. I mean, to your question about referral as a means of access. I think the important that this is really referral, sort of warm handoff style referral, right? This is about engaging with folks who are in encampments, recognizing that they need a place to go and having outreach capacity that can support them in navigating their way to the shelter. So it wouldn't look like sort of a referral of here's where you can go and hope that somebody gets there. So I think that's why we're building out our navigation teams right now as part of our overall system expansion. And then to the commissioner's point, there's both, the services that are provided by the on-site provider, which will be the basic safety services, but then also engage peers and other case management supports that folks coming there will need, and then bringing in an additional sort of layer of mobile support services that we're also building out right now. So I think, the focus, the understanding is that these villages need to be able to successfully support folks who are in unsanctioned encampments, many of whom are dealing with really significant behavioral health challenges. So for them to be successful, they need to be equipped to support people with those kinds of needs. And so that's the work that we're doing in partnership with Commissioner Ryan's team right now.
Mm-hmm. And then one just quick follow-up question. So maybe I heard this wrong, but it sounds like the TriMet property, it says there's still there's still a contract pending or that hasn't been signed yet. I mean, is there any wiggle room with that? Is there a chance that can't be solidified as a site yet, or are these all locked in for sure?
That we definitely have a good faith agreement, and I don't think General Manager Sam DeSue would have been here today if we weren't going to move forward with a lot of confidence in that partnership. So,
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And thank you, everyone. We're running up on time. So what I'm going to ask everyone to do is if you have more specific questions as follow-ups, because I'm seeing that all the hands that are currently raised are follow-up questions, please send them to me directly or to saferestvillages@portlandoregon.gov. Our communications liaison is Brian Aptekar, who's also on the call. You should all have his email at this point. And feel free to follow up and let me know if you have additional questions. And again, very much appreciate your time. And we'll be sending out some more additional materials related to the press release on what we discussed today and the site locations in particular as soon as I'm done with this right now. So thank you all for being here. Let me know if you have questions, and I'm sure I'll talk to a lot of you soon. And thank you, Commissioner.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your interest. We'll be back at you soon.
Okay.